Good morning, good evening, knowledge seekers and executors. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about the extension of the design pattern service. Yesterday I was talking about, in my last video, I was talking about the microservices architecture and the design patterns it is involved in microservices. So just like recapping what I was discussed, like microservices architecture, which was enabling the scalability and the deploying easily and flexibility and maintainability, all these things which can be helpful to create the microservices using these design patterns. And the architecture has been emerged as a leading approach for building large scale distributed applications. And as I told, like it has like various factors we have to consider when we are developing the microservices, especially which I talked about, service communication, how the interaction between these services, and data management, the database as a service, database as a service, and when we are developing something on that. And the next one is fault tolerance, which is talking about if something goes wrong and how do we approach, and what will be the backup and rollback, all those mechanisms which will be there in the fault tolerance patterns. And the next one is deployment pattern. So how do we deploy it, and what kind of deployment we can make it faster and reliable and serviceable. The resilience behind that deployment, which will make us life easier. So nowadays, we got like CI/CD pipelines, which is like continuous integration and continuous deployments, which we are talking. I'll talk about more details on that. And the fifth one, which I talked about, scalability pattern. Once you have been deployed, horizontal scaling, vertical scaling, which I can talk more on that scalability pattern. Basically, it will increase the instances to make it faster, your services, and giving more flexibility to the user, and more fastness to the response what the user is requested. And security pattern, especially very much important to between the services. If especially the vulnerabilities has been raised, and there are a lot of hackers which have been trying to make your system to be down, or trying to get the access the data and do a lot of vulnerabilities. How do we avoid using these security how do we avoid these issues? Very simple, is maintaining these security patterns, so we can leverage those security patterns. That will be helping. And the last one is the observability pattern, which is talking about mainly the metrics of your health checks of your services, and how do we find out the issues before they customize it, and SRE, site reliability engineering. All these things will be available in the observability patterns. So let's go to the first one, service communication pattern. So service communication pattern, which is mainly talking about the communications, how do we enabling between the services. That is one thing which is talking about. It has like individual services interact and exchange information which with each other in the microservices architecture. And the individual services are the purpose is just whatever the request which is coming, the response which has to provide it. So basically it will talk about the communication, how do we communicate, and what kind of communication will make it faster, all those things which we'll be talking. So in the service layer, so inside that also we have a request and response service, request and response pattern, which is talking about our standard applications where you pass the request and get the response. And the second pattern inside this is event driven. It talks about mainly the producers and consumers. So where we talked about Kafka and all, which we are talking, right? Event driven. So event basis it will go with that. And pops up, the pops up pattern, everyone understand, publisher and subscriber. The own purpose is it is having a topic, the publisher will publish it, and subscribers will get the messages through the topic. So that there is a slight difference between the pops up and event driven architecture. I can talk more details on that. And CQRS, which is command query responsibility segregation. So I can talk more on that, what the command which will be reading and query will be the writing operations which will be doing. Choreography, which is talking mainly on the centralized distribution, and that is what choreography. And API gateway, API gateway, which is calling about how do we communicate through APIs. I can talk more on that in the next videos. And service mesh. So these are all the patterns which are available in the service communication pattern. I can talk more details individually what is these patterns in my next video. Thank you so much.